Hello, so welcome. We've got Lee Lamb with us today, the author of just a slightly read book called The Journey Through the Guilt Trip. Welcome to the Listening Detective TV, and this episode is all about guilt. So this is your show if you want to find out how to make guilt in your life. So Lee, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lovely, I love seeing a book like that with lots of notes, lots of highlights. I can't wait to get started.
Well, it's like, which one should we do? There's so much there. So just tell me a little bit about the book and why you wrote it, first of all, and then we'll take it from there.
So I've been a coach for 14 years now, and part of doing that was really to understand my own story and my own history. And obviously the book starts with this idea that I had a breakdown in my late 20s. And even though I didn't realize it at the time, it was all very linked to the concept of guilt. Mm-hmm. And as I've worked with hundreds and thousands of coaching clients, it's become clear that a lot of the problems that people have are down to their feelings of inadequacy or less value. And it's in this comparison with other people. So one of my absolute idols is Brené Brown. And I love the fact that she tackled a difficult subject. So I was very much like, right, I'm there with her in spirit. And obviously guilt is a difficult subject for people, but I know that that's what my journey has ultimately led to. And speaking to people who have read the book or my clients, it seems to be something that resonates with a huge amount of people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I know we've talked off air before we came on, is that my journey was sensitive to criticism. A lot of the criticism that I was almost fearing was in where I saw and I felt because definitely wanting approval and wanting to meet the needs of other people. And then that created this kind of a restrictive life because it almost, when you get your circle of friends gets bigger. It's okay when you're just your family of 4 or 5, you kind of do that as a child. But when you then go back and you have as your globe, your circle grows, the physical and mental and emotional capacity to actually accommodate everything is so challenging. And that's definitely my experience. And in my book, the first chapter was I just want everybody to be happy.
Yeah.
And that can be one of the challenges. So what you talked off there, that one of the things that you want people to know about guilt. So if you were to share, what's the one thing you want people to understand about guilt?
I think for me, it's the realization that guilt is just another emotion. And as with all emotions, they are actually positive things. They're feedback loops for us. So we have this idea that guilt is only ever negative. And, if you're breaking a law, then yes, if you're guilty, then that's a bad thing. But when we're talking about just interacting in society, in your relationships or at work, that guilt goes into various facets, and most of it can be quite positive. I believe that if you follow your personal code of conduct, guilt is simply your way of going, what you're doing right now and your personal code of conduct are out of line. And the guilt is your nudge back to living authentically, living in line with who you are, which is lovely, right? The problem is that a lot of the guilt that we feel doesn't come from that personal code of conduct. It comes from trying to keep others happy and others using the psychology of guilt to help us not change too much into staying who they think we are, not us. So a lot of the impetus of the book was to try and explain it's just information, and actually it can be an incredibly positive thing to have in your life, as long as you can dissect it and make sense of it in a way that empowers rather than makes you feel that you're the person who doesn't know the rules of living.
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing that came up for me then, because I remember my critic or even my guilt being, because people used to say to me, you overanalyze things. Actually, what I've come to realize is that some of those people that were giving that kind of feedback were not prepared to go there and do the work. And actually, it's being willing to open that Pandora's box up and go, actually, what's this guilt all about? And you talked about, being guilty if you've broken a law. What I've realized is that over the years, and particularly with social media, because that's what one of the first pages I checked up. It was really on page 31. But it's the fact that because of social media now, and you've got access to a whole load of rules, which I realised my light bulb went, I realised I was operating my life as though rules were the law.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was like,
exactly.
It's just a rule. And if I want to change it, I don't have to run that I like. So one of the rules I'm changing at the moment is that I still keep running on the old corporate rule of either working 9 till 5. I have the time off and I do all that. But if my husband's working, I think I ought to be. And it was fine when he was at work and he couldn't see that I'd gone for a girly coffee and chat in the afternoon. When he's actually in the house and I go, bye, I'm going out. There was a rule that obviously I can do it as long as they can't see me. And I think that's what you're saying, aren't you? Because it's taken me a little while to actually understand what people mean by core values and personal values. The words I would use, or the expression is, what's the rule? What's the story you're telling yourself that's holding this together? And does that rule or that story or that code serve you? Because we collect them, don't we? And I think there's a lady called Jenny Gordon who's in the process of writing a book called Comparisonitis. I actually know is mine bigger than yours, and it's about getting the disease comparisonitis. But I think we've got access now to so much more to compare ourselves by. And if you are on a journey to want to be something, and then like a good parent or a good boss or whatever it might be, and then you hear and see somebody doing it, it's really easy. You go, oh, am I getting it wrong?
Yeah.
And I think that what I've heard you say is it's really about getting to that point where you go, oh, that's a different way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because good is good to me is like the word nice. Like my English teacher always used to say to me, nice is a nothing word. It can mean whatever. And good can fall into that category. So something like a good parent, what is a good parent? Right. And social media is a brilliant place to look at this, because if you go into certain parts, Pinterest, for example, good parent is pasta crafts and organic food, and just this sense that you're not a real parent if you're not absolutely embedded in your child's every moment. It's a way of being, and it's beautiful. It's not the only way. So then we've got on other mediums, I see it a lot on Facebook, things like the scummy mummies who are like, to hell with it, I can't do it. I just want to get through the day without having to chug on wine at lunchtime, because it's just too hard. And to me, it's a direct response to the idea that there's a code, a good way, and people just saying, I just can't do that. And now some people will just immediately see that and go, I clearly am not good enough. That's what's going on here. I'm not a good parent because I can't do those. But then people go deep into that and they start reacting, and they say, if you think I'm already bad, you've seen nothing yet, right? Because and they maximize and exaggerate what they see as bad parenting in order to rebel against that need to be something else.
And I do wonder when they do that publicly whether they are in private still feeling guilty, because the need to have to say something about it, like, I'm not going to let be told by you. They may well be as well, and this is just a story I'm making up. It's about how real confident are they in themselves that is the way they want to be. Because I know for me, a lot of my journey, well, I had two sort of funny, I'm resisting using breakdown, burnout, whatever it was. Like, did 9 years in a job and buried my head in work, and then went, oh, I can't do this anymore. And both times I just want to be a stay-at-home mum. I did about 3 months, went, I just want to get the balance. This is just not working. But I remember when my mum was dying, and we were, for probably the first time in our life, actually had some conversations. It was like my last time to be curious with her and ask her, how did you do it? So I started having these conversations to eradicate my guilt, because I was obviously feeling like I never quite came up to her, because she was always seen as a stay-at-home mum, which makes me laugh now, because she always had a factory job 9 till 3, but I called her a stay-at-home mum. It's so funny, the box that I put things in. And I said to her, how did you do it when Dad was away at sea for 18 months at a time, and all the gluing and sticking, you did all this stuff, and she looked at her own installation. Oh, for goodness sake. That's what I was doing wrong. So I was like trying, Mondays was craft night, and Tuesday was cooking night, and Wednesday was whatever. The kids were too tired when I got home from school to be doing anything. So a bit of fresh air, something to eat, a story and a bedtime was really all they really needed from me on a Monday to Friday. And those memories that had stuck in my mind that were so magical were an afternoon on a weekend maybe, or during a school holiday. And my perception of them, and I think that's the thing we have to remember about social media as well, is people give us a moment in time. I remember putting a post out the other day about, oh, you're really tranquil, and it was all beautiful. I took a picture and I posted it, and then everything went wrong afterwards. I was like, you know, the rain started coming down, and somebody yelled me, and I had to go, and I was like, I really ought to go back and update that picture, because really that ain't real. That was like 30 seconds of my life. And I think we don't get, from a time perception, we don't get reality. We get moments of emotional outburst or celebration of success or whatever it might be. And it's never the whole picture, is it, that we're then calibrating ourselves against?
No, and we have this risk of assuming that everything we see is valid and a rule that we must follow. And particularly when you've got the backup of lots of followers, or someone's called an influencer, there's so much more pressure because what we're effectively saying is you should really pay attention to this person because this person's kind of got it sussed. And none of us have got it sussed. You know, something that works really well for one person will be really harsh on somebody else. And for me, living guilt-free is not about rebelling against other people's rules. It's just knowing yours so clearly that what other people do doesn't matter. You can just roll with it.
Well, I know we were going to keep it short, but I can't not have this conversation about this making other people making you feel guilty, because that's one of the pages in the book, and I haven't highlighted that, so they can find it for themselves. But I said to you, there's this thing about, you know, you said there's guilt that moves, so that's your personal code. It drives you. You have to put things right. You have to make things better, because it's important, and it's who you are, you know, in your DNA. And then there's the guilt that glues you. That's the stuff that's coming externally. So it might be it could be a partner or a parent that's said something or done something, and you use the expression that they make you feel guilty. And I remember thinking, and I just want to sort of talk about that for a little bit more, because I think it's really important to be aware when we start playing with guilt. It's very easy to, as a defense mechanism, almost get into drama where we're blaming the other person for making us feel guilty. So tell me a little bit more about what you want people to do if they start to recognize because we can often see it in other people so much quicker than we can see it in ourselves.
Oh, definitely.
We might do the guilt. We do the guilt stuff on other people, like, oh, I don't want you to do this, or we might say and do things without realizing we're doing it. And you very carefully say that, don't you? You know, if you're going to start asking other people not to make you feel good, then you've got to own that and not be doing 100%. It yourself. And therefore, we're all on that journey, as you quite rightly say. So what is the most important sort of first step for somebody if they start to feel that somebody else is making them feel guilty? What's the first thing that they need to be thinking about doing?
Well, it's definitely not about blame, right? Because 99.9% of people's influence on us is completely unintentional and subconscious. So it's not them knowing that that's what they're doing. It's simply that what they're doing is just what we're all designed to do. We have this idea of how that for our own safety, we need to be inside the circle, not outside. And that's what we're always looking for. Any sign of exclusion, of us potentially being outside the acceptance, will shift our behavior. Now, obviously, people close to you who you have allowed to influence you because of who they are and the relationship you have with them, they will, because you have to compromise, you have to shift a little bit each person. The danger is if we do it for everybody. So, and we're all pre-programmed to bring people back into where we need them to be, not where they want to be. You know, it's, if you think of someone who's losing weight, for example, it's not untypical for them to suddenly have lots of cakes around them and lots of temps. Now, that's not friends or relatives trying to get them off guard or show that they fail. It's just that they know the person, and to them, they like cake and they don't really want them to change, even though they know it's for the
Yeah.
best.
And or they just like cake. I remember when I was doing that with my daughter, who's 24 now. We went out and she said, "Why do you always take me for hot chocolate and cake?" And I went, "Because that's what we've always done." She said, "You could just go for a walk and a glass of water if you like." I went, "Oh, okay then." And it's like, it's also recognised if we decide to change, other people are going to carry on the track, aren't they, that they were already on. So it's not that they're doing it to be purposely unhelpful. It's just that you've chosen to change. This is now an involuntary change that they haven't chosen.
Exactly.
So none of us really like it. Even if we choose to have it, it's uncomfortable. We've got to kind of go through that adjusting. And the other example we talked about briefly, I just want to bring in is because it's recognized when they have, because sometimes they can have an emotional response, whether they're angry or they're cross or whatever. It's recognizing that that's as you said, an involuntary reaction to it. And I sort of, one that I know I've worked on with my husband is that I'm eyes or tutting, and I read that as, oh, they don't like it or they're going to be disappointed. And in years I would adjust my behavior and go, oh, that's right, I don't really need to go, it's fine. But over time, and you said, you can't do it, but also if you have a particular person who's very important, you can't do it with them all of the time. You have to have times when you do what's right for you, even if they are highly dependent, disabled or whatever that might be. And so we've been playing as a couple where I go, I'm going to do this, and Mark will do, and we call it puppy eyes. You go, oh, like that, and I have to go to him, you're doing your puppy eyes, and he goes, oh. And when we talked it through, it's like, he said, I'm really happy for you to go, and it's absolutely. And I thought, oh, we were going to do this, I'm a bit disappointed, but not disappointed that I can't go. But it's just that it's being able to acknowledge that their place, isn't it? That when we shift, they shift as well, but they're not doing it voluntarily.
Exactly. And the thing is, one of the phrases that I use in the book is, no one is born for the benefit of others. We are all born to be unique individuals, capable and aware of ourselves, and how to behave, how to be the best version of you. We can get into this trap of thinking that we know best for everybody. So when they need us, we're like, oh, we need to fix this. And that's not the case. And it actually keeps them weak if you constantly think that they're going to need you to act in a certain way. When we talk about having, adult to adult conversations, that is essentially saying, I am responsible for my actions, my emotions, my thoughts, and so are you. And we can have it on that level. As soon as you start trying to, preempt a reaction, it gets very dodgy territory. But also we have to recognize that there are people who, even when they don't mean to, actually see what they get, see the benefit of acting, like you say, with puppy dog eyes. And they start thinking, oh, actually, this is getting results, right? This is getting me what I want. And then it becomes an enabler. So it starts off subconscious, but they actually understand that it gets them the world that they need. And it's not intentional, it's not malicious.
I think that's the bit to hang on to, isn't it? It's not done. And actually, if you look at what works about that, is they want to spend more time with you, or they want you to do, or whatever that might be, and it's hanging on to it. And I guess that the other bit I had highlighted, I can't remember which page it's on now, I think it might be here, but it was about the support network. Because I think I'd say that I've noticed when I step out and do what I want to do, where in the past I wouldn't have done it because I would have felt guilty for letting somebody down or disappointing something, what I've realised and what I've noticed that every single time it happens is you create space for change to happen for other people. And whilst it might be uncomfortable, and we said once you learn to be okay with them not being okay for a moment, growth happens for everybody in the system. And I believe that can only be happening because I remember pulling out, we went away for a month in the all summer, so obviously the family talks about, and people stepped in that wouldn't do. And when I went on my retreat, people stepped in with my family that wouldn't normally, because I'm always there to do it. And relationships connected that wouldn't have been there. And I had to deal with, oh, they can get on without me, they don't need me. So that whole feeling of being belonging. And so what was crucial for my development was, one, to go on the journey with a coach and start thinking about what I want, where's the guilt coming from, understanding my triggers. but also developing a really good, strong support network, so that when my roles change and adapt, there's a network that's there that won't always belong.
And
that has to be updated and changed as well, because people come in and out of that network on a regular basis. But you talk about that support, and I think that's an important thing to sort of to say a little bit, that when we are doing this change, that's why coaching is such a valuable tool. We need the coach, but we also need to develop a network of people that are going to be okay with us adapting and changing, people that are on the journey of change with us, and they don't expect us to stay who we were yesterday.
Oh, completely. And you know, we change the relationships all the time. There'll be times when you're leaning on someone, and there's times when they're leaning on you. But we can't expect people to lean on us if we're not prepared to show the same the other way, right? And it's this idea that, you know, if you go into that rescuer mode of I'm the only one who can, it diminishes the value of other people, and they stop asking for help because they can't reciprocate. You know, I think I say in the book, you know, think about how good it feels when you help someone. You're stopping someone else having that moment by pretending that you can do it all yourself. And you know, and I think some of it is around this idea of the difference between independence and interdependence. You know, independence is obviously a very trendy way of thinking about it. I don't need anyone, you know, Beyonce and her independent woman, 100% there for it. But in reality, we do need people, but we need to know when to pull them in and when to stand on our own feet and when to be there for them. And that's the part that's tricky, because you have to stay really present in those relationships to be able to gauge, is this a good time to ask for help or to give help? And that's dynamic. Sometimes that person who normally fends for themselves will be completely dependent. You know, I know for myself, I had breast cancer 3 years ago. My husband was literally running the house for the whole time I was on chemo because I just physically couldn't do it. I hated asking for that kind of help. You know, I was literally trying to crawl downstairs sometimes going, I could do it. Well, I clearly couldn't. I mean, I was fooling no one. But it was a good lesson for me to go, actually, it's okay to let other people drive for a while. The difference is when you get used to that and go, oh, actually, now I don't think I can start driving again. I don't feel capable.
I think that is a beautiful metaphor, isn't it? That between passenger and driver. And I think we could do a whole new video all on how to ask for help and how to be a passenger driver.
That's a big
so I'm going to stop it there, just because we'll be for hours otherwise. And it's been an absolute joy having you on this episode. And so we will be putting a link to the book at the end of the video. It's in back to front. I'm probably there on for you. But Journey Through Guilt Trip with Leanne. You know that you're not doing more of what you love right now because you keep having that guilt trip. So at the very, very, very card to finish off then, warm thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing what else happens with the book in the future.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who's even read the book or knows of the title. It all means the world to me.
Fabulous, thank you.